In the headlines, a manhunt is on. French police say 2 suspects in the Paris terrorist attack are still on the loose, while a 3rd suspect has turned himself in. South Korea's point man on North Korea shows a shift in stance on the anti-Pyongyang leaflets amid anticipation over inter-Korean dialogue. And Samsung Electronics tips a 37% drop in the 4th quarter operating profit, confirming expectations for its first year of profit decline since 2011. Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News, coming to you live from Seoul. I am Kang Tae-ri. We begin with the latest from the horrific terror attack in Paris. A massive manhunt is underway for these gunmen who took 12 lives after storming the offices of a French satirical magazine. For more details, we connect live to Paulie, who is standing by for us at the news center. Paul, I understand one of the suspects has turned himself in to police, and several other detentions or arrests were made overnight.
That's right. The youngest of the 3 main suspects, an 18-year-old identified as Hamid Murad, surrendered to police earlier on Wednesday night, just hours after the mass shooting. And in the latest update, there's been reports that the remaining 2 suspected culprits, who authorities say are likely armed and dangerous, have been spotted in the city of Ans in northern France. This as France's Prime Minister Manuel Valls says several people in connection with the deadly attack on Wednesday were detained overnight during the manhunt. AFP has put that number at 7. Earlier, President Francois Hollande denounced the shootings as a terrorist attack and declared Thursday as a national day of mourning.
They left their mark on generations and generations of French through their influence, through their insolence, through their rare independence. Here, I want to say to them that this message of freedom, we will continue to defend it in their name.
Now, there's been reports of another shooting directly at police this time, just a day after the siege in Charlie Hebdo. Is there any link between these 2 different attacks?
Well, there's been no official confirmation yet whether they are connected, and authorities are warning the public and the media not to jump to any brief conclusions. France's top security official, Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve, announced early Thursday that 2 people, including a female police officer, have been gravely wounded near a metro station south of Paris. And according to police sources, in just the last hour, that officer has died due to severe injuries.
Now, this is certainly another tragic death in the City of Lights. Now, this story has been gripping headlines around the world. What's been the reaction from the international community and world leaders?
Well, there's been a tremendous outpouring of messages of condolences, as well as demonstrations to show support and solidarity with the French, not just in Europe, but across North America and the Middle East. And here in Korea, the government has also voiced its outrage over the assault on the French media outlet, Hebdo.
Our government is shocked and furious that many people, including policemen, were sacrificed in the terrorist attack against the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo in Paris on January 7th. We strongly condemn the act of terrorism.
Earlier, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called the killings a horrendous, unjustifiable, and cold-blooded crime. U.S. President Barack Obama, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel also condemned the attacks, among other world leaders.
Now, thank you so much. Let's leave it there, Paul, for now, and we will keep you updated on this story. Now, moving on to other stories of the day, South Korea's unification minister has shown a more flexible stance on government action over the flying of anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border to North Korea. Now, this leaflet campaign by civic groups here in South Korea is a growing issue that's been hindering inter-Korean dialogue. Our Connie Kim tells us more.
South Korea's unification minister says a considerable number of lower-level talks will need to take place before the leaders of South and North Korea can sit down for a summit. Speaking before the National Assembly's Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee on Thursday, Minister Ryu Gil-jae touched upon a number of inter-Korean-related topics. On top of the possibility of a meeting between President Park Geun-hye and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Ryu said the lower-level talks would also likely include the possible resumption of reunions for families separated by the Korean War. On the flying of anti-Pyongyang leaflets by South Korean activists across the border into the north, an act that has angered the North Korean regime, Ryu showed eased positions towards the government's stance of having no legal grounds to ban the launches. He added that they would try to prevent the launches if they pose a safety threat to residents in the area. The National Assembly's Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee passed a resolution that urges the government to take action against South Korean civic groups that fly anti-North Korea leaflets across the border. A group of South Korean activists flew 600,000 leaflets across the border on Monday. Now that prompted the North to call on the South Korean government to clearly state its stance on the issue. The prospects of a possible inter-Korean summit were raised at the start of the year when Kim Jong-un said in his New Year's address that Pyongyang was open to talks with Seoul. President Park Geun-hye echoed that sentiment in her New Year's speech, but the leaflet launches have soured the mood. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
The top man at the FBI reaffirms that North Korea was responsible for the hack attack on Sony Pictures. Plus, Washington's top intelligence chief has warned that Pyongyang could launch additional cyber attacks against the United States. Kwon So-ah has this report.
There's no doubt. The FBI seems more confident than ever that North Korea was behind the recent hacking of Sony Pictures. That's what James Comey, the bureau's director, said Wednesday during a speech at a cybersecurity conference in New York.
Right, why do I have such high confidence in this attribution to North Korea? Now, here's the tricky part. I want to show you as much as I can, the American people, about the why, and I want to show the bad guys as little as possible about the how.
But while stressing the bureau has to preserve its methods and sources, he did give some explanation on why the FBI is certain. When the hackers sent emails, they would use proxy servers for disguise, but at times they got, quote, sloppy and were directly connected. That's when the FBI caught IP addresses only used by North Koreans. And on the same day at the same location, James Clapper, Washington's top intelligence chief, warned there's a high probability North Korea will launch more cyber attacks on the United States, calling the recent hacking the most serious attack of its kind against U.S. interests, resulting in huge financial losses. He added the cyber world is a powerful new realm for Pyongyang.
If they get global recognition at a low cost with no consequence, they will do it again and keep doing it again until we push back. And of course, others will follow suit.
Clapper went on to say that if nothing is done to punish North Korea, the regime will continue to lash out. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Samsung Electronics has tipped the fourth quarter earnings that was stronger than market expectations thanks to strong performance in the memory chip division, but its operating profit is still expected to drop by 37% on year, and this confirms Samsung's first annual profit drop in 3 years. Kim Young-gil has more.
In a guidance report released on Thursday, Samsung Electronics said its operating profit will likely be $4.7 billion in the October to December period of 2014, beating expectations. However, that would also mean that profits were down almost 37.5% from a year earlier, marking the first annual profit decline since 2011.
The main reason for the profit decline was due to shrinking smartphone profits as Samsung's Galaxy line struggles to compete with Apple's iPhone and cheaper Chinese rivals. Increased marketing costs also contributed to the decline in operating profits.
But the fourth quarter figure still marks a rebound from the company's third quarter profits of $3.6 billion, which was Samsung's lowest quarterly profit in more than 3 years. Fourth quarter sales likely fell more than 12% on year to some $47 billion, but that's up $4.5 billion from the previous quarter. Analysts presume Samsung's semiconductor division performed better than the cash cow mobile business in the October to December period, aided by a rise in demand for memory chips that go into personal computers and smartphones. Analysts say Samsung's mobile business will better this year.
Although the world's smartphone market is still competitive, we expect Samsung to regain its footing with the upcoming release of the Galaxy 6 smartphone. Samsung has also improved its lower-tier smartphone lineups to retain its market share and boost profits.
The analyst also predicted that sales of semiconductors and advanced display panels will pick up thanks to the favorable market conditions. Although Samsung did not provide a breakdown of its divisional profits, analysts expect a better picture of Samsung's overall performance once the final earning figures are released later this month. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Now, in this next report, we take you to this year's International Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us the latest and hottest gadgets are out, and they are going smarter, wearable, and super connected.
What should I wear? It's a question people constantly ask themselves after setting foot in the 2015 International Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Perhaps something that helps you make the most of your time in the gym, taking note of your heartbeat and movements. And who needs a chauffeur when you can order your BMW to pick you up right away?
BMW, pick me up. It's not science fiction anymore. It is science fact. The age of the Internet of Things has already started.
Wearable smart devices are increasingly in the spotlight, with companies presenting gadgets in line with the Internet of Things, a trend that involves devices talking to each other across the Internet. Companies believe that everything we touch or interact with will be connected to the World Wide Web in the next several years. Samsung Electronics has set a goal of having all of its devices connected to the web by 2020. Korean companies have been quick to hook up home appliances to the net, but now they're exploring products that are not traditionally electronic, like furniture.
I'm coming home.
And the climate for business looks bright due to the rising demand for smart home devices. Data by U.S.-based market tracker Strategy Analytics says the global market for smart homes will grow to more than $100 billion in 2019, more than double last year's total of $45 billion. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Markets across the world are feeling the effects of the recent drop in oil prices. Here in Korea, deflation worries are making a comeback. Our Chun Se-min reports.
There are concerns that spiraling global oil prices could push Korea's annual inflation rate down this year into the 0% range. If that happens, it would mark lows not seen since 1999, right after the Asian financial crisis, when consumer price growth dipped to 0.8%. Dim projections are being raised by analysis from financial firms at home and abroad. Samsung Securities and the Korean Development Institute have downgraded their forecast to below 1%. Overseas, Credit Suisse also lowered its projection from nearly 3% to 0.9%, citing plunging crude prices. Some experts have gone so far as to raise the possibility of deflation in Korea. To ease such worries, Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan said Wednesday that lower oil prices could benefit Korea, as a drop in import prices would help boost domestic demand. But analysts worry that it is still too early to tell whether the current trend will persist.
Saying that we are headed for deflation is a little too much, but we can take these concerns as just warnings for the future. But if government measures like eased monetary policies don't work and we still are faced with a low growth rate and slow production, then we may be in for grave trouble.
The Bank of Korea forecasted this year's inflation rate at nearly 2.5% last October, but said it will reflect lower global oil prices into its revised economic forecast report that will be released this month. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And sliding oil prices have pushed down international raw material prices as well to a nearly 6-year low. The Commodity Research Bureau Index, which compiles data of 21 staple commodities, including grain, crude, and metal, hit 225 points on Tuesday. That's the lowest it's been since April 2009. Compared to the very first half of last year, West Texas Intermediate crude has dropped 55% in value, gold 8%, and copper 12%. Analysts forecast prices to remain low or drop even further, at least through the first half of this year, citing the oversupply of international crude and economic uncertainties in major economies around the globe. With fears that the latest outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease might spread further, Korea stepped up efforts to contain it. In fact, the latest data shows that the government has spent billions of dollars to deal with contagious livestock disease over the past 4 years. Our Lee Ji-yoon tells us more.
$2.7 billion. That's how much the Korean government has spent over the last 4 years to deal with livestock diseases. According to the Agriculture Ministry on Thursday, the government spent more than $2.5 billion between 2010 and 2011. This is when the country had to slaughter over 3 million animals in the nation's largest outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease. On top of that, $75 million went toward dealing with avian influenza, where over 6 million chickens and ducks were culled. The money covered the costs of slaughtering the animals, sterilizing infected farms, and compensating farmers. In the latest outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease that started last month, over 28,000 pigs have been slaughtered so far, already incurring a loss of some $9 million. But the government is hoping to save some of the cost this time. Instead of slaughtering all animals at infected farms, the government's policy now is to selectively slaughter only the ones showing symptoms of infection. Along with strengthened quarantine measures, the government is considering penalizing farmers that don't vaccinate their livestock. Experts also say that the government should set aside a bigger budget for animal vaccination and quarantine to keep diseases from breaking out in the first place. Despite the efforts, though, the Agriculture Ministry confirmed another case of the disease in Sejong City on Thursday. The ministry said authorities have culled 226 pigs at the farm. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
It's a big accomplishment when artists have their work shown in major museums, and the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art aims to extend that opportunity to all artists through the Young Korean Artist Program. And our Imuni has a closer look at some of the top young artists of 2015.
Silently, a cloud of reaching hands, shivering in the wind. A peek into a land of fantasy and wonder. But what are these hands reaching for? And where is this water going? A huge pile of what appears to be rubbish, overrun by flowing water. A seemingly wasteful cycle. A handful of the most talented up-and-coming young Korean artists illustrate their views and comments on the problems of our society.
The Young Korean Artist Program was started in 1982 at MMCA, and this time, for the 18th edition, we've chosen 8 different artists over 40 different works of various styles. Previous artists took more direct approaches to their works, but these artists took an oblique approach that resulted in dark, fairy tale-like experience.
And through this dark fairy tale theme, these artists convey their message. Such as young artist No Sang-ho, whose Martian wagon looks like it came right from the circus. The dozens of plaster drawings tell the stories of individuals, people encountered by the artist himself.
I took this piece to the streets and told my story to the people. Then I would listen to their stories as well as their feedback to my story. After that, it would be my turn again, and I would write my story once more. This process is what led to my next project.
This time, artist No creates a visually limited experience, causing a heightened response to each image and drawing that does get caught by the spotlight. Images from the circus with a shroud of eerie gloom. They hang next to drawings of people, stories of individuals, who all, coincidentally, are visually impaired, hindered either by opaque glasses or by a complete lack of eyes altogether.
This piece is about a town full of blind people, and that's exactly what you'll experience as well. You can't see every part of the piece, just what your flashlight allows. Because people cannot see the entire meaning of the work, it requires them to use their imagination to connect the drawings and ultimately connect the dots. Through this project, you can enter and exit a whole different world.
And other artists turn to different senses, some more pungent than others. A revolting stench that overrides all other senses, except the sense of urgency. They're abstract works of art that contain images of life and death, things we encounter in our everyday lives, ideas and thoughts that are up for interpretation, that will hopefully, someday, lead to a better tomorrow. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
And in other international stories making headlines today, search teams in Indonesia are preparing to raise the tail section of the crashed AirAsia plane from bottom of the Java Sea. And for the latest, Paul Ia is joining us from the news center once again. Paul, despite this breakthrough discovery of the tail section, it looks like they're facing severe challenges in the next stage of this recovery mission.
That's right. The tailpiece, which was confirmed yesterday to be from Flight 8501, is reportedly buried in mud 30 meters underwater and is believed to be upside down. Indonesian authorities say it was found in a secondary search area, which lends weight to theories that strong currents have moved the debris, as well as the remains of the many victims who are still unaccounted for.
The priority of the day is to lift the tail of the plane because the black box could be in there. Later, the search operation team will brief me what the plan is and the details. Once we're confirmed with the proposed action, we'll start doing it.
Finally, the tail is a significant development as it houses the black boxes, the voice and flight data recorders, which could give investigators clues as to the cause of the crash. 40 bodies have been recovered so far, but authorities believe many of the 122 other people that were on board may still be trapped inside the main body of the plane.
Now, let's take a look at the financial markets. The Eurozone economy has been hit hard by falling oil prices, just like other economies around the world, with inflation now in negative territory, otherwise known as deflation. And we also talked about deflation worries here in Korea. Give us more details on this dramatic shift.
Well, it marks the first time the currency bloc has officially slumped into deflation in 5 years. According to the year-end estimates released by the European Statistics Office on Wednesday, consumer prices across the Eurozone dropped 0.2% in December from a year earlier. Analysts have mostly attributed the decline to free-falling oil prices.
Yes, core rates, inflation rates in the Eurozone may have ticked up slightly, but it's the headline rate of inflation that the person on the street actually cares about and what is going to frame consumer behavior going forward.
Brent crude has slipped to roughly $50 a barrel, having plunged more than half since last year's high of $115. Declining oil prices are expected to increase business and consumer spending, but experts say a long period of tumbling prices can choke the economy and prove difficult to get out of.
And finally, voting has kicked off in Sri Lanka's presidential election. There has been heightened security across the country leading up to this vote. Give us a rundown of the main candidates.
Well, there's incumbent President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is seeking a third term. He's going up against his former health minister, Maithripala Sirisena. Now, the incumbent president is surfing a wave of popularity after the 2009 defeat of the Tamil Tiger separatists, who had waged a 26-year war against the government. Some 15 million people are eligible to cast ballots at polling stations across the country, which opened this Thursday morning. While there have been no reliable opinion polls ahead of this vote, many believe Sirisena will benefit from a popular yearning for change after a decade under the ruling party. Charity?
All right, Paul, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for those stories, and we'll see you again in just about 2 hours.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather forecast. Brisk cold conditions have eased up a bit compared to yesterday under clear skies, but weather advisories have been upgraded to a dry weather alert for the eastern coast of Gangwon-do province, so make sure to drink plenty of water. Also, the cold wave watch continues to stick around in some places, including Gyeonggi-do province. Well, looking ahead, it looks like brisk cold conditions will continue through tomorrow, but temperatures will jump back to the seasonal averages by the afternoon. Other than that, some unwelcome news that Find Us index may rise above averages in the Chungcheong-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces. Looking ahead, it looks like the big gap in temperatures between the day and night will continue, but besides that, conditions should be nice for spending time outdoors. On to Friday's readings. Seoul reaches 3, Gwangju 6, Busan hits 8. On to other places. Jeju makes it to 10, Dokdo hits 6, Mount Kumgang remains colder. Those are the updates we're following at this hour, but more updates coming up after 10. See you soon.
Yes, we'll see you then. Bo-kyung, thank you very much. And that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.